This is the online lecture which will introduce you to the project. This project will focus on experimental approaches to microdwelling, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in week 1. The idea is that this project will be like a vehicle to build skills for all of you in idea-led inquiry and in the languages and elements of spatial and material enclosure. These are 2 of the key course learning outcomes. The theme of dwelling will be central to this course, Design Practice, as well as to critical perspectives and to interior techniques. So you'll be examining dwelling through 3 different lenses. The idea is that you'll be able to draw from each of these subjects and to apply learnings from each subject to other courses. In critical perspectives, you'll study dwelling through the lens of history and theory and critical engagement. In interior techniques, you'll be studying dwelling through the lens of materiality and assemblage. You'll be able to apply these theories and techniques to your understanding of microdwelling and spatial enclosure in design practice. In design practice, the way that we will explore microdwelling is by giving you all a real-world brief. The brief, like in industry, is made up of 3 components that you need to respond to. The first is the user, who is also the client. The second is the program, and the program refers to the function of the space. The third is the site, and the site refers to the place that the project is located. It's very important to understand the project, to read the course outline. The course outline details all aspects of the project and answers frequently asked questions. You're free, of course, to ask me questions and your tutor, but the first step is to listen to this lecture and to read in detail all of the course outline. So let's talk through each of the 3 components of the project brief. The first is the user. So what we'll be doing is watching a movie, and this is the movie that I sent you a week ago, called Cutie and the Boxer. The central characters in Cutie and the Boxer are Noriko and Ushio Shinohara. These 2 characters will be your client. You will be designing for them. The story behind them is that at 50 and 80, Ushio and Noriko have moved to Sydney. Their finances are very tight. They need to be close to the city for their practice, and they have an interest in experimenting with alternative ways of living. Because of this, they have decided to self-build a micro apartment. You will come up with ideas for them. It's crucial that this week you watch Cutie and the Boxer, the film, to understand your client, your user. You need to think about their personalities and their characteristics, as well as the space that they live in and the way that they use that space. We will be doing an exercise in week 1 which centers around your understanding of these 2 characters. There are 3 parts to the program. The program also refers to the function. The first is the micro apartment. This should be no bigger than 25 square meters of floor area. The rules around this you can find in the course outline, and you can ask us questions along the way. The second part of the program is the urban intervention, and this will focus on one domestic function from the micro apartment being situated in the sidewalk space. The third part of the program is a grocer, Japanese grocer. You do not have to design the grocer, but you do need to consider that this grocer will be in the same space as the micro apartment. So let's talk about these parts of the program. The first, the micro apartment. You'll be designing the micro apartment for your clients who are also the end users, Ushio and Noriko. And the goal here is to really explore experimental approaches to small scale living, keeping in mind that you shouldn't be compromising the quality of space. And so one aspect to consider is that we need to continue having access to both air and to light. And there are multiple ways that you can do that. The urban intervention is for Ushio and Noriko, but also for the general public in the surrounding area of Kingsford. The idea of the urban intervention is that you will be taking one domestic function that focuses either on eating or on sleeping or on washing from the micro apartment and situating it on the sidewalk. The aim of this is multiple. One is to offer expanded amenity to a very small apartment by borrowing from the sidewalk. And the other is to offer expanded amenity to the street users in the public space. The idea of this is that we'd like you to really start to think about the relationships between interior space and the often very closely linked urban environment, and the role that these two play in supporting one another and often in intersecting with one another. We understand that doing this is going to mean that you need to really need to question the conventions of what are very familiar to you right now. So this means you need to experiment with boundaries between public and private space, between exterior and interior space, and between interiors and the urban realm. The third part of the program, the grocer, the Japanese grocer, is again not something that you have to design, but it is a space that Ushio and Noriko have said they would like to be included in the program. They will run a Japanese grocer that sits alongside the micro apartment and the urban intervention. So you'll need to be considerate of how these components interact with the grocer, whilst only needing to dedicate a space for the grocer. The site. The site is O'Day's Corner. It is a real site just down the road from UNSW in Kingsford. The building was built in 1914 and is heritage listed. You can see in the white shaded area the part of the building that you will be working with. The project will look at an interior alteration to the site, as well as an exterior addition and an intervention in the sidewalk space. In the course outline, you'll be able to find the rules about what you can and cannot change. In essence, we need to keep the street-facing facade as existing. The windows must remain, but new openings can be made. The area that you can see shaded in this image is where you're able to extend. This will be an external addition to the existing building. You are free to use this as you like. If you look at the bottom drawing, this is a plan of the site. The area dashed in black is the existing building. The area dashed in white is the sidewalk space. This is where your urban intervention should occur. The location of the three functions are totally up to you. These will be driven by your research and your design idea, as well as the pragmatics of the project. Feel free to experiment with how these three functions interrelate and locate in the site. In week 1, we will take you to the site, which is quite close to the university campus. It's about a 10-minute walk from the Square House to Middle Street and Anzac Parade in Kingsford, and we will guide you through a simple site analysis. What we will do is provide a basic 3D Rhino model of the site, and it will be your job to use this model as a basis to then generate plans, sections and elevations, and to integrate your proposal into the model that documents the existing site and surrounding buildings. The design process surrounding these components is that you will need to research and experiment with the three components of the brief. That is the user, the program, and the site. We need to really understand those so that we can then develop a design proposal in response. Through this project, we're asking you to start to explore several issues. Urban issues surrounding micro-dwelling, the history of dwelling, human-centered design, so centering on Ushio and Noriko, small-scale spatial design as interior, architecture and urban, and the idea that our skills as interior architects can be easily transferred into interdisciplinary realms. You'll also be looking at boundaries, so at boundaries between public, semi-public and private space. This is also an area that is key to an understanding of interior architecture and urban design.